Welcome to my presentation. The research topic I am going to present is a proton exchange membrane based on Chitosan and carbon nanotubes. My name is Omar Cesar Diaz Lobaton, and I belong to the Postgraduate Studies and Research Division of the National Institute of Mexico, based at the Technological Institute of Toluca. I hope it will have a positive impact on everyone. Okay, abstract. A proton exchange membrane, PM, was developed by functionalizing carbon nanotubes with chitosan, ethylene glycol, dimethyl ether, and glycerol. Subsequently, the membrane was doped with polypyrrole using the atmospheric pressure glow discharge plasma technique at different times, 20, 30, 40, and 50 minutes. The plasma treatment modified the morphology and increased the carbon-carbon and carbon-nitrogen double bonds and the carbon-oxygen single bond, indicating greater cross-linking of the polymer matrix. The doped membrane achieved a proton conductivity of 2 times 10 to the minus 2 siemens per centimeter to the minus 1, 50% higher than that of the version without carbon nanotubes, in addition to exhibiting greater mechanical and thermal resistance. This suggests that the functionalized carbon nanotubes integrated into the chitosan chains act as additional pathways for proton conduction. Theoretical framework. Okay, in a proton exchange fuel cell, we have the gas inlet, the anode compartment, the electrolyte, the cathode compartment, and the product outlet, which in our case is water. In this way, hydrogen molecules enter the cell through the anode compartment, and upon contact with the proton exchange membrane, oxidation occurs, generating protons and electrons. The electrons travel through the external circuit, while the protons generated are directed towards the cathode compartment, where the oxygen, upon reaching the catalyst, is reduced, forming 2 highly negatively charged oxygen atoms that recombine with the protons, generating our product, which is water. Therefore, the proton exchange membrane, PEM, must be semi-permeable, as it functions as an electronic insulator, allowing the passage of hydrogen ions, while at the same time being an excellent conductor of protons. As we know, carbon nanotubes are cylindrical structures of carbon atoms with excellent electrical, mechanical, and thermal properties. Similarly, chitosan is a natural biopolymer, abundant in nature, insoluble in water, permeable to hydrogen, and biodegradable, and polypyrrole is a polymer formed by pyrrole monomers, flexible and ductile electrochemically, and an excellent polymerizer. Methodology. The synthesis and characterization of the proton exchange membrane, consisting of chitosan, polypyrrole, and carbon nanotubes, was carried out in 4 stages. For the first stage, 3 grams of powdered chitosan were dissolved in 30 ml of deionized water to form a homogeneous solution. At the same time, 2 ml of glycerol were added to 30 ml of deionized water, which was sonicated to homogenize the solution. Once the chitosan and glycerol were dissolved, they were mixed by magnetic stirring for 20 minutes. For each membrane to be made, 0.25 grams, 0.05 grams, 0.07 grams, 1.0 grams, and 0.125 grams of carbon nanotubes were dispersed in 10 milliliters of deionized water by ultrasonic bath for 30 minutes. Once the carbon nanotubes are dispersed, they are added to the solution until a homogeneous solution is obtained for a period of 15 minutes. 1 milliliter of acetic acid is added together with 0.15% volume dimethyl ethylene glycol until a homogeneous mixture is obtained by ultrasonic bath for 30 minutes. Subsequently, the resulting solution is poured into an 8.8 cm diameter Petri dish, achieving a thickness of 5 cm point, and by evaporation, membranes Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 and Q5 are obtained, which are cured in a convection oven until constant weight is achieved. In the second stage, using luminescent discharge in a reactor, the Chitosan membranes are placed in a prepared sodium sulfate solution. The reactor is connected to the plasma discharge source and adjusted so that it and the reactor enter resonance, thereby achieving polymerization of the membranes. The voltage supplied by the source is 1.0 kilovolts and 0.5 amperes for 60 minutes. After polymerization is complete, the membranes are rinsed with deionized water and left to dry. In the third stage, the polymerized membranes are immersed in a solution of 1 milliliter of sodium hydroxide for 5 minutes. They are then removed and immersed in a solution of 0.25 milliliters of sulfuric acid for 24 hours to activate them protonically. Finally, in the fourth stage, information is obtained on the water absorption capacity, physicochemical composition, morphology, and proton conductivity properties of the membranes. Results: when analyzing the water absorption capacity of the 5 membranes tested, it was found that the membrane with 0.5 grams of carbon nanotubes presented the highest resistance to liquid absorption, as shown in Figure 1. This led to the discovery that membrane Q2, when operating in a fuel cell at 80 degrees Celsius, exhibited the highest proton conductivity of 2 per 10 to minus 2 Siemens per centimeter to minus 1, as shown in Figure 4, which is 1.5 times higher than a membrane without carbon nanotubes. The results showed that doping using the glow discharge plasma technique modified the morphology and increased carbon-carbon and carbon-nitrogen double bonds, as well as a single carbon-oxygen bond, which is associated with an increase in the cross-linking level of the membranes, as shown in Figure 2, which significantly influenced the modification of the surface at different exposure times, as shown in the scanning electron microscope images in Figure 3. Okay, conclusion. Carbon nanotubes were functionalized with Chitosan, ethylene glycol, dimethyl ether, and glycerol to obtain a proton exchange membrane type membrane obtained by evaporation and doped with polypyrrole using the glow discharge plasma technique at atmospheric pressure for 20, 30, 40, and 50 minutes. The results showed that the glow discharge plasma technique doping modified morphology and increased the presence of double bonds, carbon-carbon, carbon-nitrogen, as well as a single carbon-oxygen bond, which was associated with an increase in the cross-linking level of the membrane. The membranes doped by polypyrrole using the glow discharge plasma technique showed a proton conductivity of the order of 2 per 10 to minus 2 Siemens per centimeter to minus 1 at 80 degrees Celsius, which is 1.5 times higher than the conductivity of the membrane without carbon nanotubes. Consequently, the membranes exhibit greater mechanical and thermal resistance than the membrane without carbon nanotubes. It could be expected that the carbon nanotubes functionalized in the Chitosan chains act as an additional proton conduction pathway in the proton exchange membrane type membrane. Thank you. I am grateful for the unconditional support of my advisor, PhD Celso Hernández Tenorio, my co-advisor, PhD Claudia Alicia Cortés Escobedo, and my professor, PhD Hilda Moreno Saavedra.